Let's just look and review a few things. Let's look at the classified documents case. One individual is Vice President of the United States, removes documents which he has no right to do, Joe Biden. He then removes documents also before he was Vice President as a U.S. Senator, no right to do that, doesn't have the right to declassify. Yet a special counsel is appointed, and the result of that is that, well, there's nothing we're going to do because he's a kindly older gentleman that has a bad memory and it wouldn't be a good case. And yet at the same time, a president of the United States who does have a right to declassify documents, removes them, keeps them in a secure place, has the right to do it because he was a president and he's indicted. Do you think it's appropriate? Do you think someone who's being interviewed for a position when they're going to be appointed, or somebody who is running for office and is going to be elected at this level of government in the judiciary should say what they want to do as far as putting somebody in jail before they've even seen the case? Is that appropriate, yes or no?
Your description of the Herr and Smith cases is inaccurate. I don't know whether your description of what the two district attorneys said.
Well, then you don't look at the news. Excuse me, Attorney General, because I only have a limited amount of time. Everywhere it was reported. It was, if you knew anything, you knew that Alvin Bragg and also, again, the prosecutor in Fulton County, Georgia, they ran on that. And that's wrong. That isn't equal justice for all. It's wrong. Are you aware that on May 3rd, Special Counsel Smith himself acknowledged in a court filing that after the FBI seized evidence that, and it's right on Mar-a-Lago, that some of the evidence was altered, manipulated, or disturbed? Is that standard procedure?
I have not read anywhere where he said it was altered or manipulated. So again, I can't accept that characterization.
Mr. Attorney General, I want to be respectful, man. Are you living in a bubble here? I mean,
I'm not living in a bubble, but your characterization is false.
I mean, everybody saw it, everybody heard it. Smith himself said it. That's why that case was stopped.
If you can show me where he said he manipulated the evidence, I'll have a different.
You don't like my word, but that there was some tampering, and absolutely he said that he had touched the evidence, and we don't know what level, and now Americans are concerned, God knows what level it is and whether we'll really know the truth. And I got a question about this. Former President Trump, as you know, was being dragged through a political travesty, and you won't agree that it's a travesty, orchestrated by Alvin Bragg.
Mr. Attorney General, it would be inappropriate for you to opine on the nature of pending and active prosecutions, correct?
Yes, there's a Justice Department policy against making those kind of comments.
It's longstanding precedent.
Yes.
The reason why I bring that up, I have great respect for my colleague from New Jersey. I understand he is not a lawyer by training, and the world needs good dentists, so it's nothing against his career choices. But I will just simply say, I find it shameful to have to endure, and I can only imagine how you feel about it, Mr. Attorney General, the lectures from some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle about equal justice under the law or adherence to the rule of law to a man who has spent virtually his entire career in pursuit of upholding the rule of law. You talked a bit about your professional background. You started at the Department of Justice as a line prosecutor. I know you served as a special assistant prior to that, but the bulk of your early career at the Department of Justice was a line prosecutor.
Yes.
Drug trafficking, organized crime, violent crime cases.
Yes.
You then proceeded to become the principal associate deputy attorney general.
Yes, long title.
Long title, important job. And in that capacity, you oversaw a series of very important criminal prosecutions, including the prosecutions connected to the Oklahoma City bombing. Is that right?
Yes.
You were nominated and you were confirmed on a bipartisan basis here in Washington, D.C., to the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. You rose to chief judge of the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals.
I think that just meant I survived my colleagues, yes.
That may be, Mr. Attorney General, but what I can say with confidence is that you have a more distinguished record with respect to fidelity to the rule of law than any member sitting on the dais here today on either side of the aisle. And I appreciate your integrity, your leadership of the department, and to be candid, your patience during the bulk of this hearing, which of course has focused on virtually every issue unconnected to the bulk of the work that is done by our nation's premier law enforcement agency. I've been in and out of this hearing. I believe it's correct that you haven't gotten any questions about cybercrime, let's say, for example.
That's right.
Fair enough. Or foreign espionage.
Right.
I know during your opening statement you talked about the decisive action that the Department of Justice is taking in coordination with the DEA and the FBI against cartels. Very few questions about that today from my colleagues, unfortunately, unless I'm wrong.
You're right.
A litany of work that's being done each and every day at the Department of Justice that has a real impact on people's lives in terms of keeping our communities safe, keeping Americans safe. This was supposed to be, I thought, an oversight hearing for the Department of Justice. And unfortunately, it has descended into a lot of rhetoric about conspiracy theories and the like. I think it's a wasted opportunity to actually engage with you and your department about the issues that the American people care deeply about. And so I will spend the remaining amount of my time left talking about an issue that's deeply important to me, and I know an issue that's important to you, which is the scourge of gun violence. And the department has taken a leadership role under your tenure in the last several years, particularly as it relates to implementing the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, which was a bipartisan bill that this Congress passed thanks to President Biden's leadership. And I wonder if you might just opine a bit or expound a bit on your work as it relates to gun violence.
Well, the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act has been extraordinarily helpful in our effort to combat gun violence. It's led to substantial numbers of prohibited sales of guns to minors who the statutes prohibit possessing because of conduct that they have engaged in. It's given us the authority to bring cases for straw purchasing that's led to crime guns and to gun trafficking to criminals, and in those ways has helped drive down the numbers with respect to gun violence. We have set up crime gun intelligence centers so that our state and local counterparts can trace guns that are found at crime scenes to determine whether they were used by serial killers, by serial shooters, to help us find out, to run the DNA off of the casings so that we can find hits on those people and arrest them and prevent them from committing further crimes. There's a host of things that the department has done, but the principal kind of violence we're worried about in the country is gun violence. That's what causes the enormous number of deaths we face every year.
I thank you, Mr. Attorney General, for your service to our country, and I hope you'll relay the same to all the folks at the Department of Justice, and I thank the chairman for his indulgence. I yield back.